Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho and this is Mob Reviews, and today we're going to take a look at Bloody Streets. This was created by Headless Wizard, available for PC, and it's a top-down survival shooter, where you survive against waves of zombies. How well does it actually handle? And that's what we will answer here today. And as always, we will begin in the options menu. Now, it's definitely nice that they have a large variable of screen resolutions. That is appreciated. Not much to choose from, but the game is graphically simple. Not ugly, but it's simplistic. It does have an enjoyable art style, and it doesn't take away from the atmosphere at all, just because it's not more grim and gory detailed. Now, it is unfortunate that in the control option is not a way to rebind it. Was it a personal issue for me? No, it wasn't, but somebody else may have a problem with it. You move by simply WASD. E will pick up the objects in the map, most of the objects of which will automatically pick up for you. Shift and spacebar both contribute to dodge. The controls are very minimalistic, and while I would have liked to see them rebound for some people who have issues with standard controls, it wasn't problematic for myself. Now, you do have a way to turn the sound and the music off if that's what you desire, so that is appreciated. As well as clear save data so you can start anew and pretty much lose the progress you've made if that's something that you wish to do. Now, when it comes to performance, there has not been any tearing or clipping. The game's been running at 60 frames per second, but unfortunately I do have to say that there was twice when my game crashed. It didn't crash though in the actual game, it crashed on a loading screen. And while I have to bring it up, I also need to bring up the fact that the development team is really on top of fixing stuff like this. So even though it happened, it didn't happen in-game, and I never felt like my progression or my immersion was really compromised. It was just slightly unfortunate. It made the loading screen, I guess you could say, longer, because I had to go back in and load everything up. Now, something that's very small and still needs to be discussed, but it's not in the options menu, is when you actually play the game, as we can see here, on the side of the screen you have indicators in between different types of weapons or item packs and pickups, if it's health or ammunition or grenade. These are very small, and I would have liked to see a tooltip in the options menu to increase those so that you don't have to take away all your focus from the center of your character as you're dodging around all these zombies all the time. And it would have made it much easier for more of a peripheral vision to pick those up instead of having to change your entire focus. And while it's not a huge deal, in the heat of the combat, when everything is going so fast, so deadly, and you have monsters closing in on you, and every single step you take can determine whether you live or die, knowing which direction to take that step is very important, whether you need more ammunition or a new weapon or some such. As well as the fact that when you kill enemies later on into the higher levels, you can get large explosions and combo kills upon enemies, and when they die, depending on how you kill them, a point value will pop up above their head. Now, I would have also liked to see in the options a tooltip to sort of fade that color a little bit more, as when you start really getting kill streaks and large groups of enemies dead, your screen fills up more with the numbers. Do they linger for too long? No, but still, it does take away, like when we're saying, every single step matters, and if a zombie can be hidden under a wall of point value kill stats, it kind of takes away from your survivability. Now, when we come back to the main page, you do have achievements, and your achievements are linked to Steam achievements as well, so you don't need to worry about that. But why I bring this up is because they do have statistics to a point about how many enemies you killed that count past the achievements in the game. As you can see, the enemies killed and the types of ways I've killed them versus how many you need for the achievement. The thing that would have been nice about this is actually having a statistics page on the front. It could have been brought down very similar to the achievement tracking, but it would have had maybe your deaths, the ammo spent, favorite weapon, time usage, how many times you've rolled, kills with different weapons or environmental weapons. It would have been nice to have a statistic value available and not just your kill count tied to different weapons in the achievements. So that would have been appreciated. As well as the fact that you see there is no leaderboards. Now, this game is primed for leaderboards. As we go into the play mode of the game, You have 4 chapters split up here, and you have a total of 24 levels. Now, these levels have a point system value that is tied to a rank system. As you progress through the game, the more enemies you kill in a combination and explosive manner, meaning the higher kill streaks you get, the faster you kill enemies and the more you kill together, as well as a time base, an actual time base. It doesn't pop up on the screen, there's not a ticking clock on the screen, so that's good. But there is a time base of completion that also adds to the letter grade point system that you achieve. So it would have been nice to have a leaderboard for people who are more interested in competition, as this only allows competition with yourself. Now before we jump into the combat of the game, one more feature which I would have liked to see, and I'm sort of disappointed that it's not, is a co-op option. This game is very fast paced and you're killing zombies and destructive mannerism in tandem with the environment. Raising the stakes on certain levels, making a couple of maps a little larger, and allowing a co-op play would have really made this game even more enjoyable than it already is. I would definitely play this game on co-op if it had it, but unfortunately it does not. Is it death-defying to the game? No. Is it unfortunate? Yes. So when we jump into the game here, there is a very small selection of weapons, and that's what we'll talk about first. We'll talk about the weapon choice you have available before you actually begin the individual missions. As you can see, there are 7 weapons. Now we're going to go over a brief overlay of these weapons and what they may have as a benefactor and what they may lack. And we'll start with the shotgun. The shotgun is very basic, it's medium range, it has a wide spread shot, and it has a good power or kick to it. The shotgun feels good, it sounds good, and it does what it needs to do. I have no complaints with the shotgun. One thing you have to keep in mind though about these weapons is that there is no customizable option available. You don't increase in the level of damage or ammo collection. There is no augmentation or power increase into the individual weapons as you progress through the story, which is a little unfortunate as it does degrade a few of the weapons more obsolete later on. Now when it comes to a rifle, and this is a prime example of a weapon becoming obsolete, the base rifle is good, there's nothing wrong with it. It has a large clip, a good fire rate, a long range, and it gets you through the next couple of levels with no problem. But once you acquire the heavy rifle, which has roughly the same amount of ammunition, the same distance and fire range, but it does more damage, the base rifle no longer has any use because the heavy rifle is simply the upgraded version of it. So it's a prime example of one weapon becoming obsolete to another. And when we go to the Desert Eagle, we suffer from the same sort of environment. The Desert Eagle is very low impactual damage. It doesn't have that much weight behind it, it doesn't hit all that hard, and the clip size is very tiny. And when you compare the Desert Eagle to the Magnum, which the Magnum actually has a much larger clip size, even though it's a 6-shooter, what you're able to take into combat with you, ammunition-wise, is way larger, the damage does way more, you hit multiple enemies with a Magnum where you only hit one enemy with a Desert Eagle. You're guaranteed to get a one hit, one kill with a Magnum. With a Desert Eagle, it might be 2 or 3. So when it comes to a comparison of these two, there is no benefit to having the Desert Eagle say over the Magnum. And if there was a customizable weapon upgrade choice, then perhaps they might have allowed it, or they should have given the Desert Eagle a larger clip, or some variable to balance out the weapons better, instead of making it just filler and say, okay, well this one's obviously better than that one, and you don't really fall down to a choice as to a preference, you just fall down to a what does more damage as it's about survival. And the machine gun is the same way. There is no power buildup of the barrels before you fire the machine gun, there is no kickback, there is no real weight behind the machine gun. And this comes down not just from the sounds, but also the visualizations. When you hit your enemies, they don't rip apart, they don't really fall down at all. The damage output is actually quite low, as well as the ammo count that you have for the expenditure rate of what you're shooting is not balanced. The amount of ammo that you burn through very fast versus the amount of ammo that you carry against the amount of damage it does is not a weapon worth taking into combat. the heavy rifle is actually more beneficial than a machine gun, because the machine gun doesn't do as much damage, unfortunately, and you burn through ammo way faster. And this sort of comes down to the double barrel as well. The double barrel shotgun really doesn't have that many advantages over the shotgun. Is it a strong, heavy, kicking power weapon? Yes. And will this weapon be useful if you pick it up on some of the levels? Because on some of the levels, you will have different weapon caches, so you can switch out your weapon from the main weapon that you go in with. So is it possible to find a use for the double barrel shotgun against a very large and powerful enemy? Yes. But is it a weapon of choice that you'd want to take into battle with you? Not necessarily. Because you get swarmed by enemies continuously, and this is what you have to remember. It's about survival. Every step matters. You don't want to get crowded in, and you have to use grenades to try to have crowd control, and the environment to do the same thing. The double barrel shotgun, while it may be heavy and it does have a punch, it doesn't have the crowd control that you need versus the other shotgun, because the base shotgun has a spread effect, where the double barrel is just a straight line. So when you're dealing with enemies that on every map swarm you and come from every direction and surround you quite easily, and you have to continuously keep moving, having a one-lane cannon doesn't do all that well against the environment that you're fighting in. And does the fact that the weapons fall down to, instead of 7 choosable preference weapons, you have 3 which are environmentally, oh well, this weapon will be better for this mission? Is that game breaking? No. Is it unfortunate? Yes, completely unfortunate. But it doesn't destroy the gameplay, because the gameplay is about tension, it's about high pace action. And so if you have the right weapon in there, you're still enjoying the survival element of the game. It's just you don't have as much choice as you may think in a baseline. Which brings us to the combat itself. The combat is broken up in a very interesting fashion. As you progress through these different levels, which get more complicated or difficult or environmentally unfriendly or beneficial, you will find yourself continuously stacked against the odds, where you have hundreds of zombies pouring down at you in these 3-round rotations, because the time will increase, so your score will go down if you need to take a breather and sort of regain health from med packs and pick up items or grenades and be like, okay, I'm ready now. So it does depend on the speed of which you progress through the game as to how prepared you are for the later rounds. But the weapons do come down to a very repetitive gameplay, but not feel. And what I mean by that is, yes, you will be surrounded by enemies, and you will have these couple weapons that you'll be using to gain the advantage. And the survival element on the different maps is roughly the same. You have different enemies that you need to destroy. What changes it from not feeling repetitive is the fact that on one map, as you slowly begin in the game, you'll be faced with basic zombies, and then the zombies will get faster. It doesn't mean all of the zombies, but there is a variety element added. You have zombies that will explode and do damage in a radius like a walking explosion barrel. You have large zombies which are more tank-like and will spew out little worms. You have swarms of worms that will explode upon you. You have giant spiders which will tear out your eyes if you get close to them, and they will spit acid at you from a range. So this variable of enemies backed into the level design, which is done very well. The level design is continuously making you have to experience new environments. Are there some themes? Yes. There are some themes which carry over, but as we've stated, there are 24 levels. And in these different chapters, there may be different themes, but it doesn't feel like it's repetitive. And it doesn't feel like, oh, I've seen this already. Because they are different. And the level design is done in such a manner that it's a new experience or a manipulation of the environment. There are train tracks upon which trains will run through, and if you get hit by it, then you'll take a lot of damage, but it will kill anything else on the tracks. There are vehicles in the streets, cars which go by and will run anything down. There are giant razor blades or automated crushing machines, which will turn anything in between them into jam. You have flamethrowers set up around the different maps. So in between the continuous progression in the different environments and the variable on how many enemies you face, and the combination of these in different factions, they don't just throw all of them at you. Different levels have different types of enemies, and they're all well balanced. So it's about survival. It's about trying to not let the enemy surround you, but bit by bit, they take a chunk out of you here and there, a nibble, a little taste, and you look at your health and you're like, oh crap, I'm down to 9 health. How did that happen? Just try to survive. Roll, roll, roll. Am I a huge fan of a roll? I feel the roll should have had a little bit more momentum, because after you roll, you kind of just stop instead of sprint or keep running. So it is a little annoying. The roll doesn't hit exact mark, but it still is useful. So at the end of the day, when you have a weapon cache, which makes the weapons more damage preferable over preference because they don't have any upgrade capability in them, it's not like you're choosing between, oh, should I take this flamethrower, or should I take this electric static gun, or should I take this dubstep gun, whatever the case is, or version of gun that you have in your mind. It's not about your preference in between which one you like to play, but it falls down to the most useful gun there is, and unfortunately that downgrades what they have. Does it take away from the actual gameplay? No. It does make it a little bit unfortunate because you don't have that freedom of choice, but it doesn't destroy the gameplay because the combat is very fast-paced. It's very survival-oriented. As long as your weapon is killing the enemies, you're not thinking about, oh, I wish I had that gun instead. It gets the job done. And the high tension, high paced survival element of the game, which continues to test you in your ability to survive, it becomes less of a detriment to the overall gameplay as the combat and the level design, the variation of the enemies and the maps really make up for it. Is the game a little short on what I was hoping it would have? Yeah, it is. But what game isn't, right? I'm so picky. I would have liked to see some improvements in the game. I would have liked to see a little bit more choice, a little bit more depth. And so if you are hoping for a game with large customization or more in-depth variables upon how you play, then you will be disappointed. Or even if you're just hoping for a leaderboard, which I feel this game could have really benefited from. If you were hoping for a leaderboard, it does not have one at this current point in time. But does all of that destroy the gameplay? And no, I enjoyed my time in this game. I never once felt like it didn't respect me. I felt, okay, I'm progressing through these environments because these environments are radically different from the last one I experienced. And while it may not have a personal progressional note, you are having, oh, well, I want to try to redo that map because I want to get a higher score. Or, hey, there are these achievements I want to hunt after, which aren't too demanding, and I can try to farm those out. So there is a way of, hey, just keep fighting because it has a high-paced tempo action feel, and it doesn't waste your time. So I can recommend this, ladies and gentlemen, because I enjoyed my time playing in it. I've been SocioPsycho, and this has been Mob Reviews, and I hope this has been helpful to you. And I'll see you next time.